All right, let's jump into doing well, let's have a look here and have a look at this is the eclipse. So I don't know, did anybody else stay up to watch this eclipse? I know I had a heck of a time trying to stay awake. I tried. I was going to see if I could stay awake and maybe go live, but that ended up not happening. I kept falling asleep, and my wife said I was being hilarious and talking in my sleep, so it just didn't happen. But this is the eclipse, and this is why it's called the Ring of Fire, because when the moon and the sun. So this is typical of annular solar eclipses. Is the distance is such that when the eclipse is at its full, it looks like a ring of fire, also known as a crown. And this is what led to identifying eclipses as a significant indicator for when the seals are being opened up. And we get this from Revelation 4. So if you come in here to Revelation, you go to Revelation 4. And let's see. Immediately I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven and one sat on the throne, and he who sat was like a jasper and a sardius stone in appearance, and there was a rainbow around the throne in appearance like an emerald. I do believe that that's indicative of the aurora borealis, which oddly enough has been making an appearance more than ever before in these last couple of years. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and on the thrones I saw 24 elders. I definitely believe there's dual meaning with the 24 thrones and the 24 elders. 24, the number 12 is indicative of governmental perfection. When it's multiplied by 2, 2 means established, so you have established governmental perfection. And it's interesting, the things most often associated with 24 are time zones and hours. And this is what led to, and on the thrones I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white robes, and they had crowns of gold on their head. This was the first indication of maybe looking for eclipses, because, the moon is white and the sun is gold, and when they come together, they form a crown, just like that ring of fire. And from the throne proceeded lightnings, thunderings, and voices. 7 lamps were burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. Before the throne was a sea of glass like crystal, and in the midst of the throne and around the throne were 4 living creatures, full of eyes in front and back. I believe that's indicative of the stars, but it could also be indicative of their ability to see everything. There's indications of eyes in like Daniel that are interesting. The first living creature was like a lion. That seems to be Leo the constellation, or Leo the constellation represents that lion. Again, there's probably multiple layers of meaning involved in this, but at a surface level, this seems to act as a key to understand the book of Revelation. Second living creature was like a calf. It doesn't say calf. Third living creature had the face of a man, and the fourth living creature was like a flying eagle. The 4 living creatures, each having 6 wings, were full of eyes around and within, and they do not rest day or night, saying, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, who was and who is to come. This imagery seems to imply that these 4 living creatures encircle an area. So this is where this comes from. Is you've got the lion, something like a calf, which you have Taurus here, face of a man, Ophiuchus, and something like a flying eagle. And they basically cover a quarter each around the earth, which this isn't symmetrically perfect, but that seems to be what is implied with the wings and the eyes. And again, like I said, these probably there's multiple layers of meaning with these, so we don't want to just nail it down to one thing. But this imagery does seem to serve as a key to identify events happening once you know the anchor point, which we know the anchor point is the Revelation 12 sign, which is Revelation 12, 1 and 2. Now, here's the key with the eclipses. Whenever the living creatures give glory and honor to him who sits on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him who sits on the throne, who lives forever and ever, and casts their crowns before the throne. So this is so far what has been leading us to identify the events. So, like every one of these events, COVID, the Biden administration, the union of the United States and the United Kingdom, and the Al-Aqsa flood, all of these were marked by eclipses. This is what led us to paying attention to the eclipse today, is when they cast their crowns before the throne. So this fits that definition. I could be wrong. I could absolutely be wrong and just completely misinterpreting Revelation 4. But until somebody has a better explanation, this is a pretty good explanation, and it could very well mean that the elders, that this is whenever the elders give glory and honor, they cast their crowns before the throne. So the expectation here is a shift from the previous events of seal number 4. Rider on the green horse is death followed by hell. Which that seems to be centered around Israel and Gaza, to where this seems to indicate that there is a shift, and it looks as though that shift is towards Iran. And as we've talked about the last couple of shows, it seems as though this period of time could very well be the Great Tribulation. And that's based on just the order of events listed in Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21. I'm not going to get into those details. I've done it so many times, I feel like I'm kicking a dead horse. So for tonight, just suffice it to say, it seems as though we're getting ready to go into the Great Tribulation. I do have good news, though. I discovered this morning when I was looking up. So I had this conversation with Grok, as I do when I have ideas to get to get further depth. I asked Grok, I said, the Great Tribulation in the Bible is said to be worse than anything on the earth, anything that has happened on the earth. What is the scale of that? And what is the worst thing we know about to happen on the earth? And what would qualify as the worst thing in our day and age? I know it may not make very much sense. Grok made pretty good sense of it. So this is how it responded. The Great Tribulation, also called the time of Jacob's trouble, or simply great distress, is described in the Bible as the most severe period of suffering in all human history, past, present, or future. Jesus himself sets the scale in the Olivet Discourse, and this is what seems to line up with seal number 5. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not been from the beginning of the world until now, no, and never will be. And if those days had not been cut short, no human being would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Grok says this is not poetic exaggeration in context. It is presented as a literal superlative. The same event is tied to Revelation 7:14, the Great Tribulation, and draws from Daniel 12:1. And let's read Daniel 12:1 because this is interesting as it gives additional insight into this period of time. Daniel 12:1, and at that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation. I thought that was an interesting thing to note, since there was a nation, considering we're getting ready to go to battle with nation against nation. Even to that time, and at that time your people shall be delivered. So maybe that's how we should be looking at this period of time, is a time of deliverance rather than tribulation, hopefully. Everyone who is found written in the book, and many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Then I, Daniel, looked and stood. Two others. Okay, anyway, we'll get sidetracked if we keep reading. But isn't that interesting? So this is a time of trouble, which could be associated with the time of tribulation. Granted, this could be referring to the entire 7 sealed period of time, maybe not specifically seal number 5, but everything that we've looked at, in the last week or two implies that seal number 5 is kind of the final countdown before any kind of harvests. And that's based on Matthew 24. The order of events is you've got basically seal number 4, seal number 5, the Great Tribulation, and then you have seal number 6, which seems to be when what we know as the rapture is going to happen. And there's some indication with that it will be the magnetic pole shift, potentially, because it talks about the sky rolling up like a scroll and the mountains and islands being moved out of their place, which is exactly what would happen if the North Pole and the South Pole were to rotate down to the equator, which is what the expectation is with the magnetic pole shift. So very interesting things that are lining up. And today really is marking the shift towards that end, where the attention of the earth is shifting. And yeah, it looks like we're going that direction. So we're going to start with BP Earthwatch, one of my favorite YouTubers, always cutting edge information. So this is what he posted today. Let's have a listen.
The rhetoric going back and forth. First of all, you've got the talks beginning about some type of peace in Iran, and you've got, I think, Kushner involved and a couple of other people. But as soon as that started, Iran started launching missiles. Now, what they're saying, it's a type of...
See, I think this is really interesting, and it's very telling that, the focus seems to be changing from Israel to Iran right now, from the Gaza, Palestinian, from Russia, Ukraine, to where now things are changing here. And Iran indicated what they think about these negotiations, which this was honestly the expectation, is Iran was not going to negotiate any kind of a peace agreement. This is destined to escalate, and everybody knows it. The question is how's it going to affect the rest of the world? They've been preparing for this day. Iran has been preparing for this day. Islam has been preparing for this day. So it's no wonder that it's associated with the Great Tribulation. I think this is going to have a global impact. And the focus and it all the global focus is shifting over here to this. Thank God we found that section in Daniel where Michael stands up. Yesterday we covered praying that we might escape the things that are coming on the world. We do know that there are certain groups that are kept from the trials coming on the whole world. So just because you're not going through tribulation doesn't mean the tribulation isn't happening. This is why we pay attention to these things. This is why why I'm adding these different segments to bring this stuff to your attention, such as the homelessness problem. A lot of people aren't aware of the homelessness problem, of the epidemics, the drug epidemic, the mental illness problems in these different states and in these different areas. One of the things that Jesus does when he comes back is he separates the sheep from the goats. And one of the metrics for where he separates you is how you treated other people. How did you treat the homeless? How did you treat the naked? How did you treat those who were imprisoned? So this is why we're focusing on these things. But anyway, my point being is we're looking at Iran basically saying they're done with talking.
Of just a war maneuvers. It's not an attack on anybody, but it's forcing the shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz. And that's how it started out. Now, Trump had said that if the deal doesn't go down today, with I guess with Jared Kushner and the other group there trying to get the peace deal going. He said it's going to be a bad day for Iran.
Yeah, Fury said they also said they aren't afraid of our warships because they can sink them. I didn't save the video, but I was watching some videos that were illustrating the different technologies that Iran has been focusing on through the years. And they do have a lot of underwater technology. They were showing this yellow device that like silent. It's like it's like a landmine kind of that's just resting in the ocean. That when ships come by, it can go find the ship and like attach itself, and it can either disable the ship, interfere with the ship, or even blow it up. They've apparently there's technology like that. That might be what was behind that statement about them not being afraid of our ships. Is the entire ocean could be lined and ready to go. So, like the Great Tribulation could be legit.
His almost exact words. And now, from what I am understanding, that the deal fell through. It may have been because of this attack, or not attack, but this war game scenario or practice, whatever maneuvers, that may have shut it down, because as soon as they were starting to speak at this meeting, the missiles were launched. So it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't situation, But evil has no bounds, regardless of who's doing it.
Yeah.
And war is their way. But listen, we're on the edge, because Trump again said if the deal doesn't go through, it's going to be a bad day for Iran. And now they're doing this. They've been threatening this for a couple of weeks now, maybe. And at that time, they had mentioned that both Russia and China may be involved in these naval maneuvers. Not sure about that yet. I'm looking for some more information. But from what I understand, the deal did not go down for peace. And you've got this happening, and Iran is saying there's nothing you can do. And they're saying that they have the weaponry to sink any American ship, put it to the bottom of the ocean. Yeah. They're saying the ships are big, tough, whatever, but they have something that will put them on the bottom. So we're right at that. Again, we're close to the edge here, guys, because we know that, several months ago, the U.S. Air Force and the Naval Air Force, whatever, attacked Iranian's nuclear missile building site, that big valley there. But guys, more than likely, they had stuff spread everywhere. Iran is an extremely large country. So that one place was, again, where they were, I guess, refining the uranium and making it stronger and all of that, getting it all ready. But missiles have been placed everywhere. And they're saying they got the stuff to put U.S. battleships and aircraft carriers on the bottom. So that, if this is not the red line that Trump was talking about, if they attack one of our ships, there's going to be a massive war break out in the Middle East. How long it will last, I don't know. But it's like the Middle Eastern philosophy is coming to a head. In other words, total jihad, total martyrdom, everything all at once. At the same time, we're seeing pushes from similar but not exact groups as far as overtaking and pushing everything to the edge, even in New York, if you're not paying attention. But let's look at this a little. It says Iran fired live missiles into the Strait of Hormuz and temporarily disrupted traffic through the strategic oil checkpoint Tuesday as President Donald Trump's envoys opened high-stakes nuclear talks in Geneva, Switzerland, with Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, simultaneously warning that American warships could be sent to the bottom of the sea. Now, again, with this flashpoint, Trump really...
So my understanding for why Trump is sending another aircraft carrier over there is it gives them enough airplanes and fuel that they could do 24-hour nonstop operations in Iran. That's why they're sending two. Right now, there's only one.
He has not played many games with Iran. Like I said, he took out that big nuclear facility. And it's not the first time things like that have happened. But we've got a group of warmongers, both from here and in Israel, that are pushing this behind the scenes in a way. And Lindsey Graham's one of them. And also, we can't forget that Iran has always done a lot of saber rattling also. It says Iranian.
Yeah, that's the thing that I worry about, Fury, is we've heard for, many years now that there's sleeper cells all over the U.S. And, as I think about the Great Tribulation and what could be considered the worst thing to ever happen on the earth, honestly, it doesn't take much. I mean, it could just be a combination of multiple nations at war to where there's just a lot of fighting because there's 9 billion people on the planet. Some of the worst things that have happened, killed, 90 million people over many years. The worst thing that I could think of is the flood, but we don't really have an idea of how many that wiped out. And even if that qualifies as the worst thing that happened on the earth, I think it does. But I can't imagine that whatever happens during the Great Tribulation is only going to leave 8 people alive. Surely there has to be significantly more people left alive after the Great Tribulation, because even if we're at seal number 5, there's still there's still events yet to come that take out a lot of life on the earth. So I think there's probably a limitation here at the maximum of how many people it could take out. Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing that I worry about is what to expect on our homeland. And that's how we've prepared. We've personally prepared with that mentality in mind.
State affiliate.
One of the reasons I drive a Cybertruck, it's bulletproof.
Outlets reported that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched missiles from coastal and inland positions during what it called the smart control of the Strait of Hormuz. It exercised while drone units operated under signal jamming conditions. They're preparing for some type of attack, and they're bolstering in front of it. The Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly 20% of global oil supply passes, is one of the world's most vital maritime corridors. Now, at 20%, I think they're just about one of the largest. But either way, that is a tremendous amount of oil that usually goes to China. And Iran's Rear Admiral Elizra Taksira, commander of the IRG Navy, said Iran
China, because of the large population in China, they're actually very susceptible to disruptions in supply chains. So, if there's disruptions in coal or in oil, it has a pretty big impact on China. So I would imagine them probably being the first one to join and interfere with any kind of war that would disrupt their supply chain. Russia, not so much. From what I understand, Russia is significantly more independent. While they do rely on resources, they're more independent than China. China is the ones who are more at risk of supply chain disruptions, who I would expect to cause who to join in kind of a war that would impact the Chinese homeland.
Stands ready to shut down the waterway if ordered by senior leadership, which would be the Ayatollah. So again, they love to rattle the sabers. They love to boast, and it's like the smaller kid standing up to the bigger kid. Maybe you won't win, but you're going to sure let him know you're going to fight, right? We understand that. But now we have a military not run by Milley, but by Pete Hegseth. And Milley...
I wonder if that's why Trump went after Maduro first, by getting the refineries back online and getting the oil from that location as a means to kind of satisfy China. I don't know. I don't really pay attention to a lot of these strategic things. This is just stuff I've picked up throughout the years. But I wonder if there's not something to that, to where why that needed to take place first before, tackling Iran and Islam.
His people that were left behind for some reason is still working. One of his major people got fired today. Anyway, the decision to close the Strait of Hormuz rests with the senior leaders, Tangsiri said, adding that the Iran forces are prepared to carry out such an order. The missile launches unfolded as Trump's envoys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, met with Iranian officials again in Geneva for a second round of indirect nuclear negotiations. One day earlier, Trump said he would be indirectly involved in the talks and warned that while Iran wants to make a deal, the regime does not want the consequences of not making a deal. I don't think they want the consequences, Trump said aboard Air Force One yesterday. They want to make a deal, but then they turn around and do this. I guess that's like showing your hand or whatever. The president also reiterated that if negotiation fails, it's going to be a bad day for Iran, very bad. And then Khomeini replied, he said, referring to U.S. naval deployments in the region, he wrote that while an American aircraft carrier is dangerous, more dangerous than that warship is the weapon that can send that warship to the bottom of the sea. So again, that's, saber rattling, putting up a shield in a way, a psychological shield. But I don't think that affects Trump and Hegseth as much as it has other administrations. Now, in another message, Khomeini declared that the U.S. is a corrupt, oppressive empire in decline and suggested the world's strongest military may at times be struck so hard that it cannot get up. Again, talk is cheap, but if it comes down to the cutting, and they have these weapons in place, they will use them before they go down without using them.
Yeah.
And Ayatollah, he directly referred to Trump saying, or writing that the U.S. president had acknowledged Washington's inability to eliminate the Islamic Republic over the past 47 years, adding, you too will not be able to do this. He's not really trying to overthrow Iran, but it's got a lot to do with Israel, guys. You got to be honest. Mm-hmm. And it's got to do with oil. But I think Trump's been holding back somewhat simply because we've got more and more equipment moving into that area, both by sea, by air.
Yep.
It's been stacking up, guys. It's a lot more than it was just a few weeks ago. It says the missile exercise and public threats come amid a visible U.S. military buildup across the Middle East as the administration reinforces both defensive and offensive capabilities with diplomacy while diplomacy continues. And that's what we're seeing today. I don't think the meeting went well. And the Iranian commanders have dismissed the deployments, not just the Ayatollah guys. Last week, Senior Advisor General Mohammad Reza Nagda declared that even if the U.S. deployed all 12 of its aircraft carriers near Iran, it won't be able to do a damn thing. Now, we know that's a little bit of bull involved in that. It may be both sides blowing the hell out of each other, but we can do stuff. And again, we just have to watch it. But America's finished, Nagda said, asserting that Washington is incapable of aggression and drowning in humiliation. Is what's going on right now. I don't agree with that. When you look at the swamp, you could say that, right, guys? We almost say it. But there's so much going on here. We're right on the edge of a major conflict. It's almost a biblical conflict.
Almost.
And
it's definitely a biblical
we've got
conflict.
Internal enemies. And it's like
does anybody think that this is a coincidence that on the day of an eclipse, which seems to line up with seal number 5 and the start of the Great Tribulation, and we're literally talking about war with Iran, a country that has been preparing for war with the world for God knows how long, forever. That's why nobody wants them to have nuclear weapons, because it is their stated mission to destroy.
All moving at once, the internal ones, the ones along the southern border, and Iran, and throughout the Middle East. And it was all planned, and if it hadn't have been for Doge and getting some voting straightened out, then we would have Kamala.
Yikes.
With welcome arms to the people we're talking about. And they're saying that this coordinated messaging, live fire drills in a global energy choke point, threats against U.S. warships, and taunts aimed directly at Trump underscore the volatility surrounding the Geneva negotiations. And now the administration is maintaining what the officials describe as a dual track approach. Pursue a deal, but prepare for escalation. And it ends again with Trump saying if they don't, it's going to be a bad day for Iran. And if we go to New York for just a moment, guys, Mamdani,
can't wait till we cover this.
He got turned down by the governor there on a lot of money, a lot of projects like free train fares, free taxis, and all that. And she came in and said no.
Good.
And so he's going after the taxes the same way that Newsom is doing. Said numbers game, $127 billion budget, up a whopping $11 billion from this year, with a 9.5% property tax hike. Insanity, guys. So they want to tax everybody, and that's called socialism and communism, to where it's down to only the elites, the people like him, have anything, and then everyone else is beggars. That's what's wrong with many places around the world. They have succumbed to this method. And check this out, guys. I know what you're saying, but this is New York. Now Mamdani is forcing it, the prayer 5 times a day.
Yeah.
And the people there are going nuts. It's so loud.
See, this is what it's kind of getting me to wonder, like, we're going to start seeing this on our homeland here.
And Gavin Newsom has not been out in the open as much with it, but they're all about it, I promise you. And Nancy Pelosi now is pushing him to run for president. I don't think it would happen unless every conservative voter on the planet died. But that's what's going on, guys. It's, again, enemies within and without the gate. And why this is happening is very hard to say. It has to do, I think, remember Mamdani, when he first got into the mayor's office, he had a meeting with Trump. And he came out and they were surprisingly friendly to each other. All of you remember. But, Trump kind of played the game. But I think what's happening, we saw the conflict in Minnesota, we see it all over. And the outcry from the Democratic side of the aisle about that, they don't want to lose their voters, right? Well, he is getting pressed really thin right now, both with, money, military, going overseas along the borders, all of this, right? And so I think they've kind of adopted this back out, let them boil in their own cesspool.
Yeah, Mark, I find myself struggling as well to find the positive angle, and I have to continually remind myself that this is judgment being poured out, and that, as far as I know, I don't think I'm under judgment. I think all of us here on this channel that are watching these end time events unfold, we're the ones who are being redeemed. We're the ones who are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. I don't think we have anything to fear. And even if we are to go through some kind of a tribulation, pray to escape the tribulation first and foremost, but pray that it's quick. But I do believe, we're told that we can pray to escape these things, and there's many who is it, Philadelphia, who's told that they will be kept from the trials coming on the whole world. So they're, pray to be in that group. You know what I mean? That's what I find myself doing, is like, what can I do? What more can I do to be in the Philadelphia group? One of the reasons why I'm taking an interest in, like, okay, I want to make sure that when Jesus is separating the goats from the sheep, that I'm in the sheep side. Go feed the homeless.
Long enough to see what will happen.
And it's really more than just going to feed the homeless as kind of like earning brownie points. It's really a heart change. You want to make sure you're working on your heart, that you're focusing on loving God and loving your neighbor as yourself, rather than focusing on yourself, right? Because that's where people get into problems, is where they start elevating themselves above God. They start worrying about themselves. They start becoming selfish. They start being afraid and then acting out of that fear. We want to avoid that. We absolutely want to avoid that. This is a time to rejoice. Your redemption is near. Michael is standing up and judgment is being poured out, and it's being poured out on evil people. I don't think you're evil. I don't think the people who come to this channel are evil. Who are seeking out this kind of content. I don't believe we're the evil ones.
And really, it's not going to take very long with what you see in New York right now. Again, taxes going up, property taxes 10%. And it's not going to be that much except for white people. Wow. Anyway, that's where we're at, guys.
All right, let's move on to the next thing. So, do we want to watch Vance, or since he brought up what Mamdani's doing, Douglas Murray had a really good take on this.
Risking their life.
Let's listen to Douglas Murray.
Dying due to hypothermia. But Zoran Mamdani is choosing to opine about immigration policy, and he believes we have lessons to learn from the Prophet.
I consider my own faith, Islam, a religion built upon a narrative of migration. The story of the Hijrah reminds us that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a stranger too, who fled Mecca and was welcomed in Medina. Surah An-Nahl 1642 tells us, "As for those who immigrated in the cause of Allah after being persecuted, we will surely bless them with a good home in this world." Or as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Islam began as something strange and will go back to being strange. So glad tidings to the strangers."
Douglas, I feel like he left out a few pertinent facts there, like what happened in Medina or how Islam spread from continent to continent, from Africa to Europe.
There's quite a lot left out there, Rita, isn't there? But I mean, firstly, it is rather strange hearing any politician, not least the mayor of New York, talking like this. I mean, it's like a sermon, really. And because of attitudes towards faith in America, like in most countries, we tend to keep personal.
Yeah, see, now we're talking about, like, I haven't really looked into his nationality. Have we looked into his nationality? For some reason, I don't recall his nationality. I do know that he is Muslim and is invoking Islam here in his speech. He does seem like a good candidate for the little horn. And the fact that Nancy Pelosi said she would endorse him for president kind of makes me think that we might be looking at the rise of the, if there is some kind of a rapture event, seal number 6 happens in 2026, and those who are written in the Lamb's Book of Life are removed. I could see him taking control of the United States. Is that you, the little horn coming up to uproot 3 other horns? Maybe even more than just the United States. Maybe the United States, the United Kingdom, and something else. Ooh, that's interesting.
Faith out of politics. Zoran Mamdani is clearly, ostentatiously trying to introduce his faith into politics, and is doing so, of course, as we saw there, in a very sort of dishonest way, frankly. It's not the case that the founder of Islam was just a sort of migrant roaming around the Arabian Peninsula, cast out and effectively sort of seeking to cross the southern border of the United States and do some gardening work or something. It's not just dishonest. But there's something slightly sinister about it, frankly, because, as you say, Rita, the actual story of the spread of Islam is not one of a sort of peaceful caravan of people sort of crossing over a border and asking if they can work off the books and do a bit of Deliveroo work. It's just not the story. The story of Islam and its founding was that it was spread by the sword, and so it's strange to hear a mayor of New York, or indeed any American politician, talking like this. But particularly strange when they're obviously so deliberately leaving out every pertinent detail.
and the crowd just laps it up. They just applause, no critical thinking. It's quite depressing. Now to Sydney, where we've had violent protests sparked by the visit of the Israeli president, Isaac Herzog, who came to our country to mourn with the Jewish community after the Bondi terror attack. This is the welcome he received from a woman who was named Australian of the Year in 2021, Grace Tame.
We have to continue to mobilise and we have to continue to globalise. Say it with me, from Gadigal to Gaza. Globalise the intifada. One more time. From Gadigal to Gaza. Globalise the intifada.
From Gadigal to Gaza, globalise the intifada, Douglas. There are calls for Grace Tame, who has been dubbed Australia's Greta Thunberg, to be stripped of her Australian of the Year honours. How do you see this episode in Australia this week?
Well, first of all, it's worth, I think, for some viewers, Rita, making it clear what the first word she said was. Gadigal, as I understand it, and as our Australian viewers might know, is an Aboriginal term for Sydney. So what?
Which it's mind-boggling that this would happen just months after the Bondi Beach massacre, where the Islamic father and son butchered 15 people. Unbelievable.
Grace Tame seems to be saying, among other things, is that she doesn't want to refer to Sydney by...
You know, this is one of the things that Elon Musk has really been pointing out, is this kind of thing has been happening globally. You know, he's been pointing it out in the United Kingdom with the rape gangs and stuff like that, with the transgender movement and then the Islamic movement. Now we're seeing it in Australia. You can see how this is starting to, it's embedded all around the world. And if we're removed, it's going to take over. It's going to be the dominant system of belief.
It's Australian name, and she sort of wants to go deep down, presumably into sort of, First Nations, colonizing sort of rhetoric from the beginning. But what she's saying, if you take out that bit of a particular absurdity, what she's saying is from Sydney to Gaza, globalize the intifada. Well, of course, only weeks ago, we saw what that globalizing of the intifada means in Sydney. It means massacring people on Bondi Beach, specifically targeting Jews and shooting them, including children and elderly women, on Bondi Beach in Sydney. So there is this isn't metaphor anymore. It's not some kind of, parable or something. That's what she's calling for, knowingly. She's saying, let's have more of the shooting of young girls and elderly people and anyone that can be shot. I have to say, I'm pretty startled. It takes quite a lot to shock me these days, but I'm pretty amazed that just weeks after the blood was on the sand of Bondi Beach, you have somebody, let alone who's been honored by Australia, actually calling for much more blood to be spilt. Of course, people like this always want a lot of blood to be spilt so long as it's not their own.
Yeah.
But I suppose Miss Tame just has to hope that the next gunman who comes along and starts massacring Australians misses her and her loved ones. I wonder if she thought any of that through.
I'm sure Grace Tame and her supporters, they would be arguing that intifada simply means to shake off and to oppose tyranny, that it's not a call for violence. We've heard that argument. But we've also heard from the Jewish community, like you've just explained, that they saw the Bondi terror attack as an example of globalizing the intifada.
It is intifada. It is intifada. Intifada is an armed uprising. There have been two of them in recent decades in Israel. The only use of the term intifada is to describe the massacring of civilians, the blowing up of civilians on buses, the shooting of civilians in the street. It isn't used in any other context. It only means that one thing. And
Intifada sounds like Great Tribulation to me. That's kind of my expectation. And I have to be honest. Hizzy had mentioned that I've having been afraid of the Book of Revelation. Me too. In 2019, I kind of freaked out when I had a realization we were in the end times. I prepared for 3.5 years of tribulation, and thank God it didn't go the way that I had thought it would go, that many people thought it would go. But we've come a long ways, through the COVID pandemic. That was not a fun time. Granted, I don't know about you, we were protected the whole time. God took care of
I mean,
us.
I'm just as I
God took care of us through the COVID pandemic. And likewise, the Biden administration, even with the increase in cost and with the, financial, the inflation and the financial situation around the world, God always took care of us. And even through the things that are still going on with the protests and the racism and the general sentiment of people hating one another, been relatively, and I think this is part of why some people don't think we're in the tribulation is they didn't expect the beginning of sorrows to go like this, which I think that's what we've been going through. We've been going through the beginning of sorrows, and now we're getting ready to go into the Great Tribulation. And I imagine it's not going to be like we've been anticipating. So it's definitely not something to be afraid of. I fully expect that God will protect us and keep his promise. I mean, because the Church of Philadelphia does have the promise that they will be kept from the trials coming on the whole world. And there's also the promise of being kept from the wrath, which the wrath is seal number 6 and seal number 7. And we're only at seal number 5 right now. So it's actually really exciting when you think about it, to where we have a short time and then it seems like, Yeshua is about to return. That's the most exciting thing. And then we're going to kick butt, yeah. I can't even imagine how great it's going to be once he's here.
I say amazed that an Australian can be so unbelievably wicked in public and in front of a crowd who seem to be wanting to join in that wickedness.
Yeah.
Well, we also had, Douglas, politicians, including Greens MPs, objecting to this visit. Let's hear from Barbara Pocock.
Should never have been invited to Australia. A divisive visit, one that doesn't recognise his association with genocide.
Douglas, what's your response to that argument that the president of Israel is complicit in genocide?
First of all, the president of Israel is somebody who sits above politics, much like the king does in our own democracies. And secondly, of course, there hasn't been a genocide in Gaza. What there's been is a war that was started by Hamas and some of the citizens of Gaza on October the 7th, 2023.
I have to say, I do actually like Sky News. They seem to have a more honest focus on the news. Like, just now, the way he pointed out, to where it wasn't a genocide, it was a war that started by Hamas. That is the truth.
There hasn't been a genocide or anything like it. There's been a war. And when you hear these politicians trotting out these smears and these lies, again, you have to, like with the people who pretend they don't mean what they mean when they use intifada, you've got to ask them if they really have thought through the consequences of pumping out these lies and untruths. If there were actually a genocide going on somewhere, if there was an actual attempt to completely eradicate an entire people and it had been going on, then that's one thing, but that's absolutely nothing like the war that's been going on that Hamas started. So yes, I mean, to make that claim is itself just unbelievably fallacious and erroneous. But to claim that the non-political president of a country which has been at war for the last couple of years, when he comes to Australia to mourn with terror victims in Australia, should be treated with this barrage of lies and contempt and smear is really quite something. And always, as we know, Rita, as you and I have often said, always this comes from people who think that they're standing on the right side of history. You know, there they are, standing, screaming abuse at the Jews, and it's all still on the right side of history, calling for violence, calling for more intifada, more armed uprising, but it's always on the right side of history, isn't it? It's always in a nice and kind way, of course.
And we don't see these people, whether in the US, the UK, or here in Australia, protest against the Iranian regime. We haven't seen that at all from these leftist activists, not even as shocking reports come to light of the regime executing injured protesters in their hospital beds. The New York Post reports on horrifying footage being shared inside Iran of security forces raiding hospitals to look for those who were wounded during the protest, Douglas. And the numbers killed now, we're not clear on them, but there are many tens of thousands.
I think it's safe to say, Rita, that there are certainly tens of thousands of casualties inside Iran caused by the regime, the victims being the Iranian people, who have incredibly bravely turned out on the streets to object to the regime that's ruined the country of their birth since 1979. It's pretty amazing when you think about it that in just a few weeks, all those casualties have mounted up, and there's this silence. There's just this silence. You and I have commented on it before, Rita. Why is the silence there? Is it that Jews aren't involved? Is it that they can't blame Trump? Is it that there isn't, that they can't see some kind of, decolonizing angle to this? Who knows? Maybe their fatuous worldviews aren't actually applicable to the world. I mean, there's a thought. So we have obscene things. Like commentators, not just being silent on this, and not just protesters being silent on this, but actually we've seen in recent days various Islamists and others in the West attacking the brave critics of the Iranian revolutionary government. I mean, it's not just the critics of the government on the streets of Iranian cities, it's the critics of the Iranian government from Iran in cities like New York who are getting criticism. If an ounce of that criticism went...
All right, we get the idea. I think we've learned what we can with what's going on in Australia and with Mamdani in New York and stuff like that. Let's move on. J.D. Vance gave an update today. Let's see what he had to say, talking about the red line.
So welcome back, everybody. We are honored to have the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, with us in studio today, and there's a lot to talk about. So thank you very much, first of all, Mr. Vice President, for coming.
Great to be here.
It's great to have you, and I do want to get to as much as we can with you, so I'll jump right in, if I may. And I want to start with Iran, because we're watching this back and forth in Geneva, and it's happening as, I think we can put up on the screen, the impressive military presence that we have in the whole area. I think it reminds people a lot of what we saw off the coast of Venezuela when there was this question about whether or not we were about to take military action. It looks very much like that. You've got Iran today halting traffic in the Strait of Hormuz for a few hours. We heard the Ayatollah say, well, one of your nice warships might end up at the bottom of the sea. Where's this going?
Well, I'm obviously not going to make any announcements today. I think the president has a lot of options. We do have a very powerful military. The president's shown a willingness to use it. He also has a remarkable diplomatic team. He's shown a willingness to use that, too. And so what the president has been very clear with the Iranians, and actually I just talked to Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner this morning about some of their negotiations, is the United States has certain red lines. Our primary interest here is we don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon. We don't want nuclear proliferation. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, there are a lot of other regimes, some friendly, some not so friendly, who would get nuclear weapons after them. That would be a disaster for the American people, because then you have these crazy regimes all over the world with the most dangerous weapons in the world. And that's one of the things the president has said he's going to prevent. event. Now, we would very much like, as the president has said, to resolve this through a conversation and a diplomatic negotiation, but the president has all options on the table. And, one thing about the negotiation I will say this morning is, in some ways it went well. They agreed to meet afterwards, but in other ways it was very clear that the president has set some red lines that the Iranians are not yet willing to actually acknowledge and work through. So we're going to keep on working it. But of course, the president reserves the ability to say when he thinks that diplomacy has reached its natural end. We hope we don't get to that point, but if we do, that'll be the president's call.
Well, the president said on Friday that the best thing that could happen would be regime change in Iran. And we know that that's what the crown prince in exile wants to see as well. He's saying, don't do an Obama in this situation. Don't make some kind of deal where we release $6 billion from Qatar and let them go on.
Has he commented in the last 24 hours? I'm going to go see if he said anything.
Along with the ballistic missile program. Don't do that again.
Well, I think the president will do what he thinks is in the best interest of the American people. I think he's shown very clearly that he is not Barack Obama. He takes a much different approach to America's national security, and he's much more willing to act aggressively to defend America's national security. But the president of the United States is very much trying to find a solution here, whether it's through diplomatic options or through another option that means that the Iranians cannot have a nuclear weapon. That has always been the main focus. If you go back to the campaign that he ran in 2015, the Republican primary campaign that he won, he said Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I think it's very important for the American people to appreciate it's one of the most hostile and also one of the most irrational regimes in the world. You can't have people like that have the most dangerous weapon known to man. It would be awful for our security. It would be awful for the future of our children. That is the goal of the president of the United States.
And yet they've spent all of their money and completely ignored their population for the most part on weapons and preparing for this day. That's the thing that I think I'm concerned about.
States, and he's got a lot of options and a lot of tools to make sure that doesn't happen.
They say we don't have that. We just have a peaceful program, and there's no way we're ending our peaceful nuclear program. So it's very hard to see. And you're not even mentioning the ballistic missiles or the support for the proxies. Are those also things that would be part of a package in any sort of deal, or are they not on the table?
Well, look, everything is on the table. We certainly want Iran to stop being a state sponsor of terrorism. They're one of the world's largest state sponsors of terrorism. There are a lot of ways in which they endanger America's national security, but the most important way they could is if they acquired a nuclear weapon, and that is the red line the president of the United States has consistently said. Yes, of course, the Iranians say that they're not interested in a nuclear weapon. We know, in fact, that's not true. They have shown a number of things that make it clear that they're interested in acquiring a nuclear weapon. Our goal is to make sure that doesn't happen. And again, the president has a lot of tools in the toolkit to make sure that doesn't happen.
So let's look at Europe for a moment. A lot of focus on the Munich Security Conference.
Sure.
And last year, you gave a very strong speech there that got a lot of reaction. There were a lot of long faces, actually, in the crowd from the European leaders. You talked to them about borders, about free speech.
All right.
About,
we get the point. I just
defending your.
Wanted to get a bead on what's going on in the news, and things are going on. Very interesting. So Iran starting to launch missiles at the beginning of negotiations, clearly showing their intent to not negotiate. By all accounts, it seems as though they are preparing for something, and we are preparing to respond by sending military assets over into that area. It's just a matter of when do things begin. I don't think it's any coincidence that we're at the beginning of their Ramadan, and all of this is happening. This all seems by design. Going into still seems as though we are in seal number 5. So let's end the day. I had an interesting thought that I wanted your guys' opinion on. Let's end the show by going through seal 5 and 6, because I was thinking about something today. Oh man. Faster, just type it. I don't know where I lost my Matthew 24 placeholder. All right, so we are here right there, and then in Revelation 6. So this is seal number 5. When he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? I think that's coming. Then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer, until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was completed. Okay, so that's seal number 5. That seems to be what's going to be the next 170 days. So that seems to be right here. So I guess it stands to reason they've been given their white robes and told to rest a little while longer. Is that why the weather's been so freaking crazy? I don't know about you guys. Tell me, today I woke up, it was sunny, and then it was pouring down rain like a monsoon, and then we had hail, and then right before I started the show, it was sunny again. Yeah. Anybody else having weird weather like that? And then we have there's a comet. Matter of fact, maybe we should go look at what our favorite our astronomy photographer comet guy Ray. Let's see what Ray's up to. Oh, hey, Ray's got a new video. Let's check it out. Let's see what Ray is up to.
So this is Ray. I take pictures of space. I'm a science commentator. I measure asteroids and comets, and I have various interesting things that I discuss on this channel, mostly in the astronomy science area. I make things easy for you to understand. I try my best to produce the best pictures possible, or at least live pictures possible. I don't consider them as best, but at least live pictures possible for you, so that you know what is going on. So the good news is I was able to capture the picture of the Great Comet 2026 last.
Yeah, so if you guys weren't aware, there's another comet on the radar. And this one they're speculating could hit the sun, and we don't know what kind of effect that it's going to have. And one of the interesting things that Grok responded to about the Great Tribulation is that the thing that would make it great would be the combination of things affecting the earth. So not only like war, but also like weather and earthquakes and disruptions in supply chains and stuff like that. Things that cause pressure. So pray to escape these things. Pray to be prepared. That's for sure.
Last night. Well, that's a good news. Well, now I have a lot more respect to the Comet 3I as soon as I saw the pictures, because Comet 3I right now, as you know, going towards Jupiter, and that is somewhere in the 2.5 to 3 astronomical units from us, like the distance-wise from the Earth. What that means is Comet 3I is close to 3 times the distance from us to the sun. It's that distance. So it's almost like 3 times the distance of Earth to the sun is where Comet 3I right now is. And the known radius of the nucleus is like 2.5 kilometers. And I was able to take pictures last night, not the last night, the night before, and I shared those pictures with you. It's still bright with that. And I was not expecting to take pictures at all, because a 2.5 kilometers object that is 3 astronomical units away from us, if I'm taking a picture, either my telescope is like really awesome or the object is very bright. I would consider that as later. The object is really, really bright. So we were able to get decent shots of the picture of Comet 3I. So this object, Comet 2026, is right now going from south to southwest in the evening time. So we have like an hour and a half window. I'm in the central time. I'm here in north of Austin, Leander, Texas. I'm in central time. And for me, I have from anywhere between 8 in the night till 9:30 in the night, like an hour and a half before it completely sets in the west. And that window is going to get shortened and shortened as it goes towards the reaching close to the sun. Now, I was taking pictures yesterday, and it's better than the night before. The night before, I did not get any shots at all. But yesterday, I was able to get some decent pictures. And in those pictures, I believe I got 12 or 13 of them. This comet, I was wondering how far it is, and I can see it is somewhere between 1 to 1.2 astronomical units from the Earth, right? It is only like 1/3 of the distance compared to where 3I is. And I'm assuming, based on all the news that I heard, because this is a bigger fragment of the Great Comet, or the greatest comet out there back in 11th century. So this comet should be really big, and also 1/3 of the distance from Earth to the comet compared to 3I. So it's like 1.2 astronomical units. So I was expecting at least some picture or some image or some tracking from this. It is available for us to see it, but it is very faint. I mean, that's really in one word I can say. It is looking big, that's for sure, and it is faint. Maybe it never had any interaction with sun in a long time, so maybe nothing is turned on. Maybe it will get turned on once it gets closer and closer to the sun. That may be the explanation at this moment, because these sun-grazers will put quite a bit of a show. So we need to make sure that we are able to see this comet. So I'm going to show you this comet's pictures just to give you a brief background. This is Comet, the Great Comet 2026. What we know about this comet was it is a fragment or a piece from a bigger comet that came in back in 11th century towards sun. So based on what we know, that bigger comet broke into pieces, and ever since that happened, in the same trajectory, there were other comets coming back in 1800s, in 1900s, and even in 1965. There are comets from the same trajectory. So most of these sun-grazer comets are pieces of that. And this comet that we are tracking right now, the Great Comet of 2026, it is designated as C2026A1, and it's actually found by like 4 people, Chile Observatory. And this comet is going to put quite a bit of a show. That's what we are hearing, because it's so close to the sun. So every time I look at the measurements, in one measurement it says that it is going to pass 120,000 kilometers. Other one says 800,000 kilometers. The other one says actually it is going to go through the sun. So just wanted to give you fair warning. There is no object that can hit the sun. Okay, keep that back of your mind. There is no object. There is nothing out there that we know in our solar system that can come and hit the sun. Because by the time they come any close to the sun, they will get vaporized. Because sun.
The question is, and this is the thing that people have been asking about, is, well, right, is the statement that he's saying is true, to where when it gets to within a certain distance of the sun, the heat is so intense that it would just burn it up. The question, though, is there is still energy and fuel in something that is heading towards the sun. Is it possible that it could cause a coronal mass ejection, to where the momentum of something, even though it would be burned up, can it affect the sun and cause the sun to in turn send something towards the earth? That's one of the questions that are going around, because we haven't seen anything like this before. So many new things in our universe that are happening for the first time.
Sun is so huge, and any object, no matter what it is, if it gets closer to the sun, it's gone. It becomes plasma. But they will put quite a bit of a show. So we do need to track it, and we need to go after it, figure it out what is going on. So I'm going to keep sharing the pictures with you, share all the details. Every clear night, I tried my best to go after some of these objects. So if you're interested in any one of these, please do join this channel.
All right, so that's all he's got to. Let's get back to the question. I want to finish off the show here with seal number 6. So seal number 5 seems to be the Great Tribulation. We're all praying to escape. We're praying to be kept from the trials coming on the whole earth. So we're all good with that, right? So it looks like we're going into that. It still seems like we're on track. All signs seem to indicate that there's a change of focus on the earth. Now, what happens after this? I had this thought today. So it does seem like seal number 6 is when Jesus returns to gather the elect. So this seems to be the rapture that everybody's been looking for since 2017. Here's seal number 6. I looked when he opened the 6th seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake. And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood, and the stars of heaven fell to the earth as a fig tree drops its late figs when it is shaken by a mighty wind. Then the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. This is what seems to indicate the shifting of the earth. And Ben Davidson, one of the things that keeps causing him to adjust his timeline is the unknown. Like, all it would take, maybe, would it take a comet hitting the sun, turning into plasma, and then adding a little extra juice that gets directed at the Earth in order to weaken the shields of the Earth just enough for it to do its thing? That could be the case. They're basing their calculations on when they think that the magnetic pole shift is going to change based on what they're able to measure right now. But they keep finding things that they forgot to account for in the measurements, and it's also not taking into account unknown variables. So then the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. And here's the thing that I was asking myself. And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath has come. So this shows preparation. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but have you guys seen, does anybody here watch the Y-Files? The most recent Y-Files has to do, is it the most recent one? 2 weeks ago. The Y-Files from 2 weeks ago. Check this out. If you guys haven't seen this yet, this is interesting. Oh, YouTube is being weird, isn't it? Here we
This
go.
episode of the Wi-Fi.
Here, let me get this link. I'm going to blow your guys' mind. All right, before I show you this link, come over here. So August 12th, 2026 is based on the pattern here of the opening of the seals. And so far, I haven't seen anything happen today that would imply that seal number 5 wasn't opened. We're going to know more in the days ahead. Definitely going to know more in the days ahead. But August 12th, 2026 is a good candidate for when the magnetic pole shift might happen. Check this out.
This episode of the Y-Files is brought to you by Delete Me. You wake up floating 3 feet above your bed.
Interesting.
Your phone, your keys, your furniture, all drifting around the room like you're underwater. Outside, cars lift off the highway. Trees pull out of the ground, roots and all. People grab anything bolted down. You have 7 seconds. That's how long Earth's gravity will be offline.
Guess what?
After that, it comes back. Everything falls, including the 850 million people who didn't grab hold of something in time. According to a leaked government document, this happens on August 12th, 2026.
Isn't that interesting? According to a leaked government document, this happens on August 12th, 2026, which just happens to be when seal number 6 looks like it might be opening. And seal number 6, when you look at it, looks like it might be the magnetic pole shift. Then the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. Remember, leaked government document, and the kings of the earth, The great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains. Yeah, they've been building these bunkers. And said to the rocks and the mountains, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand? And then this looks like it's going to be the gathering together that so many of us are waiting for, the rapture. Because look at Matthew 24. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, that's what we're getting ready to go into. The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven will be shaken. This kind of sounds like the sky receding as a scroll, every mountain and island being moved out of its place. The powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. My question is, if everybody eventually knows, I mean, even on the day that Jesus returns, the whole world sees him and recognizes those who have been waiting for him are excited and caught up together, and those who aren't caught up are left behind, they will have seen the fulfillment of what everybody's saying on the internet right now, right? I mean, even if you're watching The Chosen, you know Jesus is coming back. So the government knows that it's coming because they're preparing. We even have the Y-Files doing a show on a leaked government document about August 12th. How is it? Here's my question. If you go to Revelation 13, and this might explain a little bit more about seal number 7. So this is the beast from the earth. Let's read this. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. And he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence and causes the whole earth. This is why I think this might happen after the rapture. And causes the whole earth and those who dwell on it to worship the first beasts. Because if we're removed, then the people who are left are the ones who didn't believe in Jesus and the ones who were never written in the Lamb's Book of Life. So this makes sense now and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Question, though, is why would they worship the first beast? Is this where there's some kind of a deception about, and I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories, like they've been, they say that the TV shows and movies and the stories that we've been told is all predictive programming, that they're going to basically say an alien invasion came and swooped up the people. Could it be also what Y-Files is talking about, to where they're saying, the earth is going to lose gravity as a means to explain what happened? Because the rise of this beast is going to cause all those who dwell on the earth to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. That's my question, is if the whole world here, then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with great glory. Why would they worship the first beast? So either they have to be deceived, which we've seen that. We've seen people who have outright, and Jesus has even talked about this when his disciples asked why he speaks in parables, is because seeing they will not see. Like, there are some people who will get the spiritual meaning behind the parables. Is that a similar situation here, to where even if they saw the rapture happen, where people are caught up together in the air, even seeing that, they won't believe, and then they're going to be left here to worship that first beast, and then suffer all of the things that are written here, and then suffer the things that are written about seal number 7. And the question, though, is you've got, this seems to be the reaping of the earth's harvest. This seems to be seal number 6. Then I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and on the cloud sat one like the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him who sat on the cloud, thrust in your sickle and reap, for the time has come for you to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. So he who sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle, and the earth was reaped. However, there's another reaping that takes place. So is this those who, I wonder if, like, seeing the rapture, let's just call it the rapture, even though it's not written in the scripture, I get it. But seeing the harvest of the earth happen and seeing, the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds, after seeing that and not being part of it, not being caught up together, going through the wrath, those are the people who are left on the earth are the ones who were not kept from the wrath. We're being kept from the wrath. But there are some who are going to have to go through the wrath. But it seems as though there's another gathering after that. Then another angel came out of the temple, because like seal number 6 indicates the start of the wrath, right? Because we read that here. Where was it? Oh, it was way down here. Seal number 6. They say, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand? There might be hope for those who are left behind. And this is something worth exploring next. I don't know when we'll start exploring this, but because tomorrow I imagine we'll be talking about Ramadan and any other developments that indicate we might be going into the Great Tribulation. But this would seem to be what comes next, which is what I put in the title. What comes next? So what comes next for us immediately? All signs still seem to indicate Great Tribulation, something that we should pray to escape. And just because you may not be going through tribulation doesn't mean it's not happening. But really, the whole point of all of this is the reaping. This is the goal. Reaping of the earth. The harvest is ripe. We are so close to this. And multiple signs are pointing to August 12th could potentially be the rapture. I don't like being a date setter when it comes to the rapture, but this seems to be the opening of seal number 6. Now, the rapture may not happen on this day. It could very well happen on one of the appointed times. So like the Festival of Trumpets would be shortly after this. Could happen at that time. Or it could happen on this day. I don't know. We also need to the other thing we need to answer is take into account the 2 witnesses. When did the 2 witnesses die? According to the calculations here, could be as early as March of 2027 or as late as July of 2028. What are the implications of that? So we got a lot of questions left to answer. This is by no means the end, but it is pointing to our redemption being near, and that's where we are. So if you haven't seen that Y-Files, go watch it. It's really good. Usually at the end, he goes through and he shows you how it's debunked, but I think it's interesting that they're picking a day of loss of gravity on August 12th, 2026, which seems to be what this pattern is pointing to for being the magnetic pole shift, which according to the description of seal number 6 matches the description of seal number 6. So we got a lot of things pointing to the fulfillment of prophecy that we're in the end times, which this is exciting. It's no time to be afraid. I mean, I'm really glad that I found this Daniel 12 this morning, because this is really what it's all about. Where'd it go? There you go. And at that time, Michael shall stand up, the great prince, who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time, your people shall be delivered. Guys, you understand what I'm saying? We could potentially be within 6 months of being delivered. That's the most exciting thing. And also, Michael is standing up. So what are the implications of that? Is he about to kick some butt? That's cool. Everyone who is found written in the book. I believe this is referring to the Lamb's book. So this is why it's important to have a relationship with Jesus. For him to know you. In the same way that the 10 virgins, 5 are prepared, 5 are not prepared. You want to make sure you're written in the Lamb's book of life so that you can be kept from the things that are coming on the whole world. So you can be kept from the wrath that's coming. And many of those who sleep in the dust and the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise shall shine. There's a callback to the 10 virgins. With your lamps full. Now's the time to shine. Now's the time to really help people, because there are going to be people. There are people who are going through tribulation right now, and now is the time here. Let's end on this. This is Kevin Dahlgren. He goes through Portland. Here's a gal that he talked to. I think this was yesterday. This is a good example of what we could be doing during this time to help those who are going through tribulation. You want to be found shining. You want to be found with your lamp full of oil. Kevin sure as hell is. He's out helping people.
Thank you. I think you're very beautiful. I hope you were able to accept help sometime, okay? All right? I'm worried about you, but you take care of yourself, and I'll check on you again, okay, sweetie? Enjoy. I'm gonna grab you a muffin, okay? What country are you from? Okay. Do you understand English? Okay. But are you, when did you move here? Oh, when you were young, very young, okay. Well, I'm worried about you.
Science, technology, science, college, science.
Okay. Very good. So I've seen this homeless woman lying right there for days, and I sat with her for about 2 hours. She speaks very broken English. A lot of times she has to do like sign language, or she does actually write English, and she wrote soda and she wrote muffin. So I got her those 2 things. She's very sweet. When you give her something, she kind of blows the kiss. She doesn't really understand her situation, I think, because when I ask her about help, she seems kind of resistant and just standoffish. But regardless, she's been at that same spot for days, and we as a community have a responsibility to check on her regularly to try to give her some kind of alternative that isn't that. And I just sadly that isn't happening.
Yep. So if you want to know what you can do to pass the time, if you're worried about the Great Tribulation, there are people who are currently going through their Great Tribulation right now. And you're not going to go wrong by being like Kevin here, who's all he's doing is he's just going around and talking to people who are clearly in distress. He's done this for 30 years. And I guarantee you he's going to be one of the ones that's counted with the sheep and not the goats, because he's foregoing his own comforts in life. And I'm not saying every single one of you watching tonight should do this. No. What does it mean in your life? What is it that you can do? Even just contributing to what Kevin is doing. He's got a website, Truth on the Streets, where you can help him take care of these people. This is where he dedicates his time. helping him is helping them. But it would be good for you as well if you have it within you to go spend some time talking to the homeless. I've done this many times. When my wife kicked me out of the house and I was living in the car, I talked to a lot of homeless. They're people, you know. You don't avoid these people because you think they're in the throes of Satan's hands. That's the whole reason why you want to talk to these people. You know, sometimes just buying them a soda or talking to them and learning their story is enough to help them get through another day. Kevin does a really good job because he's prepared with assets, resources, and assistance to where he'll help somebody get off the streets if they're ready, if they want to, and if they ask. But he goes around checking on people. So this is, if you want to know what you should be doing during this time, it's not a time to be afraid. Granted, it is scary when you look at it, but keep in mind, Daniel, the fact that it's Michael who's standing up. So I think the Great Tribulation is the judgment coming down on those who serve Satan, who serve evil. That's who's being judged right now. Don't be caught up in being judged. Take your time, take some time to focus on others and love others as you love yourself, because that's the church. Philadelphia is the church that's kept from the trials coming on the whole earth. You want to pray to escape? This might be the key right here, is focusing on others during this time. We're watching this clip from the Two Witnesses live. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you all there.